one can tell the suffering you've been through by the smile on your face. And when you rise up with such resilience, the pain cannot destroy you. You've mastered your life. I'm Phoenix Alexander, author of Turning Trials into Triumphs, The Way of the Phoenix, professional speaker and transformation expert. Welcome to my show, The Way of the Phoenix. This episode is Trust the Journey. In my series of shows, I'll be sharing with you the very best tips, insights, and resources that I've learned over the course of my lifetime for overcoming trauma, adversity, and stress. I consider myself an expert in mental toughness and problem solving. I have been subjected to extreme violence, profoundly traumatic experiences, a life-threatening illness, and a myriad of other severe adversity. I'm confident that many of you are experiencing difficulty in your relationships or with your health or other severe trials. And statistically, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men have suffered violent personal assault. Now, I'm not so arrogant as to believe that I have all the answers for you. You have to trust your own journey. I'm going to share with you the things that helped me heal from an illness that should have killed me, unspeakable trauma and violence, and other extreme adversity. And you decide what fits and applies to you. My life has been surreal, and everyone in my inner circle agrees. If it didn't actually happen to me, I might have a hard time believing it myself. I assure you, nothing you will ever hear from me is exaggerated. Most of my trauma drama is not suitable for general audiences, so I will have to edit out some of the more graphic details and stick to what I can share in polite public. But there is more trauma than I would ever care to share. A very significant man in my life said, after learning some of the more private details, "I don't know how you kept from going crazy." I said, "I was born fighting." One of the reasons I don't want to dwell on the trauma is that it's no longer where I want to live my life. I refuse to define myself by the despicable acts that were perpetrated on me or by the seemingly insurmountable adversity that has been nearly constant. Instead, I define myself as the strong, capable woman that rose from the flames of that adversity. I am Phoenix, and I want to show you how to live the way of the Phoenix so that you can overcome whatever stress or difficulty you're having in your life. This leads me to a very important point. If you've been traumatized or victimized, give it a voice. Speak your truth to appropriate and supportive people. Then let the pain and suffering go. Don't dwell on the trauma. I was struck with the profound realization that the perpetrators had taken enough from me. I was no longer willing to be merely a victim. Instead, I chose to empower myself to become a victor. As long as you live your life as a walking witness against your perpetrators, your healing will be limited, if it's even possible. My point in telling you all this is I really do know what I'm talking about when I share with you the life skills and coping strategies that help me heal my life, get what I want, and become the happy, empowered woman that you see today. I believe that no matter what the problems are in your life, you will gain some insightful skills and valuable perspectives through my show. If you've been victimized or traumatized, give it a voice. Then let the pain and suffering go. Don't dwell on the trauma. Let me tell you about one of the most painful times in my life. I tried for 7 years to have a baby. 7 times I grieved the loss of a child. It was devastating. And then a miracle happened. I got to adopt a happy little baby boy. I was at his birth and got to bring him home from the hospital. And then, 20 months later, another miracle happened. I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. But just after her birth, I was fighting to stay alive. I was having glucose crashes that were low enough to put me in a coma or kill me. And I kept telling my doctor, I feel like I am dying. and he patronized me. So I fired him, and I found another doctor. And I brought in my glucometer. It's that thing that tests your blood sugar. I handed it to him. He scrolled through it and looked up at me and said, "It shows here you had a reading of 32. At 32, you should have been in a coma. There is not enough glucose to fuel the brain." Let me tell you, I knew that much. My brain was not working well at those levels, and neither was anything else. Some days I felt like I would literally shake to death. For 6 months, I went through extensive testing because the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. In one of the tests, I had a camera scope shoved into my upper leg all the way up to my pancreas to check for a tumor. And after the procedure, the nurse brought in this medieval-looking torture device, the clamp, which they screwed down onto my leg. And the nurse said, "Now, honey, hold still. You can't move for 4 hours. Otherwise, you'll be spurting blood all over this room." So I laid there for hours, just wondering whether they were going to figure out what was wrong with me before I died. The next test was for a pituitary brain tumor. I had an MRI. That's where they inject you with dye that makes your veins feel like they are on fire and put you in a tube so small that if you have claustrophobia, you might have an out-of-body trauma experience. After the MRI, the doctor met with me to explain the test results. He said, "I'm really perplexed. There's no pancreas tumor and there's no brain tumor. But I did find that you have a partially empty cella in your pituitary gland." So I asked if he could translate that for me. Basically, that's medical ease for "lady, part of your brain is missing," which may become obvious to some of you soon. And he recommended more testing. It was just a few days before my 30th birthday, and I called the doctor's office for the results of the latest test. And the nurse said, "Oh, I can't give you the test results." I said, "What do you mean you can't give me the results? You told me you'd have the results for me today." She said, "I know, but the doctor's out of town and only he can give you the test results." I said, "What do you mean he's out of town?" She said, "Well, he went out of town early to be with his family for the Thanksgiving break. He won't be back for 10 days. 10 days. Now, let me give you a little background here. When I was going through that test, a nurse came in and said to the nurse who was working with me, "So-and-so died last night." And I said, "What did she die from?" She said, "Oh, she wasn't very old, but she was really sick." I said, "Okay, and what did she die from?" And she said, "Adrenal insufficiency," which is what I was being tested for at that very moment. So I was a little anxious for these test results. So for my 30th birthday, my family and I weren't sure whether to have a party or start planning my funeral. I have some extensive experience in wading through the muck to get to the good part. And more than 2 decades later, I am still sucking air. Now I'm going to share with you some of the life skills and coping strategies that I learned that helped me heal my life, get what I want, and become the happy, positive, empowered woman that you see now. I realized that in order to get what I want, I had to purposefully design my life. I believe that no matter what the problems are that you face in your life, with the right resources and the correct perspectives, you will find the answers to triumph over your trials and transform your life. Regardless of the challenges you face in life, with the right resources and the correct perspectives, you will find the answers to triumph over your trials and transform your life. One of the things that I did to reinvent my life was to write a personal mission statement. How personal we talking here, Phoenix? I can refer to it for clarity when I'm faced with a confusing situation or ethical dilemma. Here are some of the declarations found in it. I never violate my personal ethics for the approval of others, for temporary gain, comfort, satisfaction, or for the sake of keeping the peace. I never allow anyone to violate my body or my boundaries. I took self-defense classes and I learned how to defend myself emotionally and physically. I choose not to participate in relationships that are deeply destructive or with people unwilling to live by the principles of a healthy relationship. I have walked away from family, personal relationships, and employers when the trauma drama outweighed the benefit. When others criticize me or seek to limit my potential, I ask myself, is this true about me? If it is, I change it. If it's not, I let it go. I don't allow the negative labels and opinions of others to influence my positive opinions of myself. It took years to gain this kind of self-esteem. And when I did, I voiced to several people in authority over me, I am no longer invested in your opinion of me. Decide what your value system is. Put it on paper and live it. When others criticize or seek to limit your potential, ask yourself, is this true about me? If it is, change it. If it's not, let it go. Writing affirmations helped me to design my life and change my perspectives to get what I want. Now, I know you've heard of affirmations, but in my series of shows, I'm going to share with you a variety of ways to really help drive your chosen ideas most effectively into your belief system. Now, statistically, only 3% of the population studies personal development material. So in case you're not using affirmations yet, the formula is write what you want in the present tense as if it's already a fact. Instead of saying something like, I don't smoke anymore, try, I am now enjoying my life in a totally healthy body. I like to start my affirmations with the phrase, the truth is, which I originated, because it helps drive it more effectively into my belief system. The truth is, whether I believe it at first or not, all my positive affirmations come true for me in time. The truth is, my affirmations are the truth that I think first and manifest next. The truth is, my life has worked exactly the way it should, and I accept that all my experiences were needed for my growth and development. Write some personal affirmations and rehearse them daily. Design your life by writing and rehearsing affirmations. Write what you want in the present tense as if it's already a fact. When you're living your life very intentionally, consider that any difficulty that comes to you is the result of a lesson that you still need to learn. Not every trial or adversity is the result of negative thinking attracting disaster to you. Sometimes we learn a valuable insight through difficulty that changes our life course for the better. Changing my perspectives helped me to heal and progress. I learned that when you can make any sense of what has happened or is happening by seeing a benefit, you can resolve and heal it. Changing your perspectives creates a new reality. Even if you haven't changed the circumstances, it changes how you feel and how you respond. Examine your perspectives and see if they're working for you. Change the ones that aren't. When you're living your life very intentionally, consider that any difficulty that comes to you is a lesson you still need to learn. Changing your perspectives creates a new reality. Even if you haven't changed the circumstances, it changes your feelings and how you respond. In my book, Turning Trials into Triumphs, The Way of the Phoenix, I shared timeless truths that I learned through much soul-searching while trying to interpret the events of my ridiculously difficult life. Here are a few of them. Each of us has life experiences that give us exactly the right opportunities for our highest growth. This is another way to say, trust the journey. All experiences can work together for your good, but you have to be willing to see the good instead of remaining in the pain or victimization. It doesn't matter as much what happens to you. What matters most is how you respond to adversity. Your life will make you better or bitter. The choice is yours. If you haven't found the good in the experience, it's not over yet. Keep examining every detail until you find a possible benefit. Then let the pain and suffering go. Each of us has life experiences that give us exactly the right opportunities for our highest growth. This is another way to say, trust the journey. Incidentally, I found that you get to repeat the experience with slight variations over and over again until you find the lesson you're supposed to gain from it. Pay attention to the negative repeating themes in your life. You may have an epiphany about what's causing it, so you can stop it. Ask yourself, when has my life felt like this or looked like this before? Or who else in my life acted this way? As long as patterns remain in your subconscious mind and unexplored, you have little control and may act out habitually. By applying the things that I just shared with you, you have tools to purposefully design your life to get what you want. You get to repeat the experience with slight variations over and over until you learn the lesson you're supposed to gain from it. My saga continues. I finally got my diagnosis. It was secondary adrenal insufficiency, caused by the partially empty sella and by adrenal glands that were totally exhausted from years of nearly constant production of fight or flight hormones. All of the medical specialists I was seeing concluded the same thing. I was going to die, probably immediately. That was completely unacceptable to me. And I began studying many avenues for healing. The Western medical healthcare approach was where I started, but if I had stopped there, it would have been a terminal mistake. And during this time of earth-shattering news, when everyone was telling me I was going to die, I realized that I had to end several toxic relationships in order to live. I split up with my husband and my parents. My sister, who was my caregiver, announced that she had to move from the state soon. Her husband had accepted employment in another state. I was beyond devastation, emotionally and physically. I had a lot of time to ponder my predicament. I was completely bedridden, fighting for my life against an illness that kept me so close to death, it's difficult to explain. I realized the most important thing for me to learn was new ways of actually living. I began meditating, and I asked the universal intelligence to guide my life. And then this amazing thing happened. Step by step, I was guided to the answers and resources I needed to heal. I beat secondary adrenal insufficiency. It came from 2 glands failing. Obviously, the damaged pituitary gland did not grow back. On February 29th, 2000, leap year, my endocrinologist said to me, "You told me you were going to heal, and I don't know how you did it, but you're well. It's medically impossible, and I don't know anyone else who's ever done it before. I can submit your case to the medical journals." What I had to do to recover was to learn how to interpret the trauma drama in my life in more empowering ways, including changing my perspectives. This is the key to healing and resolution of trauma. I believe that the things that I learned about healing and how to cope with problems will apply to anyone who's having problems in their lives. And if I could get through what I just told you about, which is only hitting a few of the highlights, you can get through whatever is happening in your life. These are the benefits I gained from a nearly fatal illness. I learned that Every day is a gift, and what you do with it matters. When you don't know whether you will live through the next minute, hour, or day, it changes you. I learned that I am stronger than I ever thought possible, and that I can handle anything that life throws at me with the perspectives I gained from that illness. And therefore, I pronounce it good. Make every day count. Learn how to deal with the trauma drama in your life in more empowering ways, including changing your perspectives. This is the key to healing and resolution of trauma. Let me take a step back and tell you about my journey of becoming a professional speaker. When my children were young, I wrote my book, but I wanted them to have my full attention, so I set it aside for a while. And then I was watching a lot of speakers on a satellite station, and I decided I wanted to be a professional speaker too. I visualized myself sharing the stage with some of them, and then the station failed. But I kept my vision of having my own personal development show. Years later, I decided it was time to pursue my dream, and I published my book and began promoting it. Then I learned about the Bill Gove Speech Workshop. It is the most prestigious professional speaker training. I was going to take training from another person and wound up with a conflict with my schedule. I was really disappointed. But then it turns out that person took training from Bill Gove years before. This was another time that I had the opportunity to trust the journey. Backtracking even further, I started training as a professional singer when I was 3 years old, dancing on the kitchen table in red cowboy boots and belting out songs. I wanted to be a real entertainer who sang and danced, and I spent many years preparing for this. I won a vocal scholarship at the university, and I won a scholarship for being a runner-up in a beauty pageant, and I won several talent contests and even got to be on TV for it. All of these contributed money for my college education. But I was so disgusted with the despicable behavior of several music professors that eventually I gave up my dream of being a singing entertainer because I was disillusioned with the people I had to work with. Also, I had a freak sewing accident. That's a wardrobe malfunction of a different kind. I was having a dress shortened, and they marked the hemline with pins. And as I stood up, I accidentally jammed my knee into the coffee table in front of me and drove a 3-inch brass pin into my knee and broke it in pieces. And the surgeon said, "Don't worry, it's going to be a little tiny arthroscopic surgery." Instead, I woke up to a 3-inch incision. Afterward, he said, "A piece of the pin is still embedded in the bone, but we can't take it out or you'll limp forever." My knee still doesn't track properly, and that effectively ended my dancing aspirations. Fast forward 3 decades. I am now bringing together many of the elements from my training as a singer into my career as a professional speaker. This long, convoluted journey with many years of seemingly wasted effort all came together. All the suffering and disappointment of my life have made me into a very different person than I designed to be in the beginning. If my life had gone the way I planned, I would likely have been an opera singer, and I would have missed the opportunity to share my insights with others and help them on their journey. Trust the process of your life to work everything out for your good, eventually. I believe that the most important qualities are the ability to be adaptable and resilient and to embrace empowering perspectives. You will be presented with challenges and changes in your course that may prove to be the best thing that ever happened. Sometimes it's hard in the middle of the muck to see that the adversity is actually leading us to a better path. Trust the journey. Believe that the universe may actually be colluding to bring you the very best things that can only happen through the process of refinement that comes with adversity. The strongest steels are refined in the hottest fires. Steve Maraboli said, "As I look back on my life, every time I thought I was being rejected from something good, I was actually being redirected to something better." The most important qualities are the ability to be adaptable and resilient, and to embrace empowering perspectives. Examine your life and see the areas where you can let go and trust the journey. Reflect on where your life has led you and make the changes you need to get to where you really want to be. I'm Phoenix Alexander, your personal empowerment guide, and you've been watching The Way of the Phoenix. This episode is Trust the Journey. Download highlights from this episode and other empowerment resources on my website, www.mynameIsPhoenix.com. And join me on my next episode. The strongest steels are refined in the hottest fires.